Okay. What I want to do as we get started here, it's not something I typically do because I typically jump right into things, right? Jump right into the conversation. But what I've been doing a lot in the last week is before I start anything, could be something as simple as washing the dishes. I take a couple of minutes just to be very silent before I begin because life has a tendency of just blending where one thing just moves into the other. It becomes this endless stream and this endless flow. And then you've gone through 3/4 of your day, but you suddenly realize you've just been on automatic mode for 3/4 of the day. And you have this sudden reminder just to come back into yourself. And so I'd like to, before we start this conversation, just take a couple of minutes. You don't have to participate if you don't want to. You can go grab a cup of tea and come back. But just to close our eyes, just sit silent with ourselves. Okay. If you're in a car, don't worry about looking weird. Just turn that light off, Carl. Nobody will know what you're doing. And just settle into yourself. We're not setting any intention or anything here. We're just getting deeper into that state of being from which we will then interact. All right. I want to begin by asking the question, and this is an honest question. What the fuck are we all doing here? Like, why are we here? Why are you here? Why are you on the Zoom? Why am I on the Zoom with you? Now, for myself, I'll begin by answering the question the best way I can. And I'm going to look to you guys to answer the question the best way you can. And we're all trying to arrive at what the answer might be, okay? Because I don't know what the answer is. I think I know. I think I know what I'm doing here. I think I know that I'm this guy who pretends to be Advaitaholics Anonymous. Okay, that's my pseudonym, right? My real name, Shiv Sen Gupta. And again, is that my real name? No, that's just the name my parents gave me because they weren't very original, right? So they were kind of culturally confined. And that's why my name is not Jonathan, because I was born in India and they had to pick an Indian name for me and they picked Shiv Sen Gupta. Okay. And then somewhere along the way, I said, hey, Shiv Sen Gupta doesn't encapsulate me. Advaitaholics Anonymous, right? It's got a little bit of a zing to it, and there's a sort of purposefulness in what it's trying to achieve. And so that's what this feels like. All right, it's a continuation of what I think I'm creating here in this world. But that's just my understanding of what's going on. That's what I think I'm doing. And this is why I think I'm on this call with you. But I don't really understand. I don't really know why we're here together right now. I don't know with any kind of certainty, right? It just sort of happened. Here we are. So I want to get each of you to speak about from the most honest place. Let's not be non-dual about this, just from the most honest place, to the best of your understanding, what it is that brought you here today, and wherever you are, in cars and on couches and houses and wherever, to join from different parts of the world and meet and have this conversation. And what is it that's motivating you? So what I'll do is, because I know everyone's going to be sitting there and who's going to go first, I'm going to pick Jonathan. If you're comfortable, Jonathan, while you're driving, don't take your eyes off the screen. There's nothing to see here. And this is the third time you've joined, I believe. Yeah. Why do you keep joining, Jonathan?
Yeah, actually, the absolute truth is I want to make use of it to probably increase the quality of my living. That sums it up.
Yeah. Okay. So Jonathan, we'll wait until you get to wherever you're getting to. Hopefully, you're not leaving Germany. But when you do get to wherever you're getting to, then maybe the sound will be better. So why don't you listen in for now, and we'll move on to Mac. Mac, you've been a reader, supporter for a very long time, and you're a good friend. At least that's the way I consider you. So what is it, Mac, that gets you joining here?
Because you're a good friend. And a couple of years ago, you asked a couple of questions that resolved my issues. I don't have any more questions. I'm not looking for anything. I just enjoy your reading, and you're my friend, so I like to come see you every now and then.
Beautiful. Anna and Manuel, is it?
Yeah.
It's easy for me to remember Anna because her name's up on the screen.
Yeah, I've been following for a long time, also done all the reading. And I really wanted to see you in the live because I missed the first two meeting. I was in India. One I forgot, and the other one was in India. And this one, I just put an alarm clock and said, I really want to go there and see Zai and speak and see the vibe. And I dragged Manuel. Say, come to me, Shiva.
So she woke you up?
Well, no, I was not doing siesta, but
Okay.
I had read when you were in Facebook. I used to read your posts and I found them very inspiring. So yeah, I'm interested. That's why I'm here.
Beautiful. Carl, you're next.
Okay. As you know, I've been a long time reader of your Facebook posts, and I've read both of your books, and yeah, at the time when I discovered Advitaholics Anonymous, I was going through a very dark phase of nihilism, and also we had a very similar experience. Mine happened on 2nd of February 2018, and I was I hope people don't mind me saying this, but I was absolutely suicidal that day, like really on the brink of just absolutely wanted to die, going through absolute mental hell. And then I imagined sorry if this upsets anyone. Yeah, I imagined I was in my bed, and I imagined in my mind shooting myself in my head. And at that moment, I experienced what Eckhart Tolle experienced. If anybody has read his books, I just felt absolute total bliss. I felt like I was floating. I felt like a transparent being. I felt full of joy and bliss. And it was absolutely wonderful. And I actually thought I'd become enlightened. I thought, wow, this is enlightenment. And but then after about 6 weeks, it wore off. And then I really went into a dark phase of nihilism. And then that's when I discovered Shiv's writings, and it really helped me to, it's like someone else had the experience I had, and it really helped me to kind of keep going and realize I'm not going mad. There's other people out there who've had the same experience, and yeah. So I'm here today to finally meet Shiv, kind of face to face, so to speak. You've been a great inspiration for me over the years, and I don't know if this analogy works, but it's almost like we're all kind of like submarines under the water with no navigation, no sonar, nothing. And we're all just kind of floating around in the dark, not knowing what the hell's going on. But Shiv, you're kind of like you bleeped on my sonar, and I'm kind of like homing into you now, kind of to try and find some kind of navigation and through this whatever it is we call existence. So yeah, that's it basically.
Beautiful, Carl. The problem is I don't know where I'm going, so don't follow me, okay? Because you're just doing the same thing. You're just following somebody else, but we're all still lost. We're all still those submarines in the dark, right? And that's really it for me, is understanding that there is no being found in this process. Nobody gets to find anything. It's all groping. Life is one extended act of groping through existence, right? They're just people who grope better than others. That's it. Some are, and it's not that they're finding anything, but through that act of groping, they've grounded themselves in a way that they're comfortable with the uncertainty, comfortable with the not knowing. It's not that they found anything. And the ones who say they have found, the ones who act like they've discovered something and understood something about life, that's just a story they're telling themselves. And most of society is doing that, right? Everyone seems like they've got a plan and they've got it figured out, whether it's spiritual or in business or in politics or whatever arena of life it is. All of society is acting like they get what this is about. Very few people actually sit back and say, actually, none of us know what this is about. We're all groping. So consider yourself fortunate in a very macabre sort of way that you're aware that you're stumbling through the dark, because most people aren't even aware of that. So that's the first step, is to become aware that you're stumbling through the dark.
Yeah.
Don, I'm looking at you.
And back at you, Shiv. After reading, I was into non-duality for a substantial number of years. Then I ran into Robert Saltzman and you, and I'll sum it up this way. I have no answers. I don't even know at this point if I have any questions, but I'm not comfortable in my own skin. I've run from pillar to post. I have a library inside, a plethora of self-help books and books on non-duality. Of course, your work and Robert Saltzman's work. What happened?
Carl, I'm going to get you to mute your mic for a second.
Yeah, and I'm here. I have to be honest. There may be no answers, and you always claim you don't offer any, that we're all groping. Some grope better than others. I like that because I'm one of the others. And I don't know if I expected epiphany or a revelation or enlightenment, but I still feel this sense of quest, this need to say, okay, I'm here. That's it. Accept it, live your life. I don't seem to be able to do that. I seem to be struggling with my own identity and a great sense of emptiness and a feeling of lack of accomplishment. And
Hey,
I think I've said too much.
Newsflash for you, Don. So do I. Exactly the things you said.
How come I can't
Lack of-
believe that?
Oh, well, believe me, I'm not lying to you. Well, I mean, you're not going to believe me if you don't want to, but I'm not lying to you.
No, I know you're not.
Lack of sense of identity,
Mhm.
struggling with the emptiness, and a lack of accomplishment. That is absolutely my reality. But like I said, some grow better than others. I'm not complaining about it because what I understand is that the path of self-realization, if let's just call it that, the path of self-realization, that's what it's about. Because all of society around you is echoing a lie back to you. Okay, Don, it's like looking in the fucking mirror and all you see is this elaborate fiasco. And you can't help but believe it at some level because you're looking at it all the time. It never stops. You open your eyes, it's there. Everybody you know is echoing it back to you. It's like, it's a really bizarre reality. Okay, it's gaslighting 24 hours a day that happens, right?
Feels that way, yeah.
Yeah, so it gets you to question your own sanity. Well, I mean, if 8 billion people and all of reality is saying one thing, but I feel another, maybe I'm wrong, right? That's just a natural assumption. Any human being would make it in the face of that momentum that what they would call Maya has. It's very hard to not question your own sanity before you question the insanity of the world. Okay. So anybody who's not walking around with some level of discomfort, dissonance, discontent, dissatisfaction has bought into the lie in some way or the other. Okay.
But I'm still so
that's what makes you
jealous.
that's what
I'm
makes a
still,
person comfortable.
well, I am still so jealous of those. I have to be honest. I have 158 IQ. I know people, I'm envious of the people with whom I went to school, went to college, and they're successful in a very conventional sense. Some of them well known, but I don't know anybody who awakens in the morning and says, what's going on? Why am I here? What purpose do I have? And
Well,
when I look
you're
around
sitting
me, I
in a
see,
you're
I see,
sitting looking at a screen full of people who do that, by the way. You're not the only one here, right? Everybody sitting here does that. That's one of the reasons we're all on this call together.
I
Because we all
want
wake up in
peace.
the morning. Well,
I want peace. I
who
want
doesn't?
peace of mind.
Who doesn't? Who doesn't?
But people I know
Easily
seem to
available
have
to
it.
you. It's easily available to you. All the epiphanies, all the revelations, everything you want, sold at every street corner. You can get it in the Bible, you can get it in the Quran, you can get it in the Bhagavad Gita, you can get it from your Mormon who knocks on your door or your Jehovah's Witness. They're all selling epiphanies.
Yeah,
Right?
but I'm not buying.
That's the problem, Don. You're not buying. Why aren't you buying?
Because it's bullshit.
All right. So there you go. That's the trade-off. To see reality, you got to give up everything else. every comfort that exists. That's the trade-off. And it's a fucked up trade-off.
It
But
hurts
that's the
even
trade-off.
it hurts even to think about it.
Well, that's the problem is you have a 158 IQ, right, Don? You're too smart for your own good. That's a lot of us. We're all sitting here. We've seen too much. So it's too late to do a U-turn. We can't go back to buying into the bullshit. And a lot of us have reached the point where we kind of like, man, it actually would be nice to go back into ignorance because you see that ignorance is bliss. There's a point when you're still, waking up and you're a little bit naive and you go, yeah, at the end of this rainbow is a pot of gold, but there is no pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. It's just more and more and more of the same challenge and hardship. And that's it. That's the life. That's the life. Yeah, it doesn't stop. You don't get to a point where you go, phew, wow, okay, I went through that tunnel. I got shit out the ass end of life. Now I'm good. No, there's no ass end of life. It's just that's the process, man. It's just ongoing.
But some people seem comfortable.
Well, because you accept it. You haven't accepted it yet. You are waiting for something to happen. Right? So you don't want the bullshit, but there's another piece of bullshit you're buying into right now that something can happen. I'm not comfortable in my skin, but maybe I can get. I'm not feeling this way, but maybe I will. And therefore, I will do this. I will read Shiv. I will read Robert. I will talk to this person and something, somewhere. Something will change.
Every minute of every day, I'm on
That's
that quest. The only thing I can come up with is either I have to make a decision between either a transorbital or a prefrontal lobotomy because the discomfort is so painful. I mean, I've been diagnosed with major depression and OCD and anxiety, and even those diagnoses and the DSM, the diagnostic amount, they're bullshit too.
Don,
I've
nobody has any clue what the experience of being you in your body, in your lifetime, in your mind, with all your propensities and perceptions and all of that is like.
and
So,
handicaps.
yeah, sure. So everyone's going to try to approximate what they think is happening because you're asking them simple. Everyone's blind to the inside of your experience. But
Right.
you're asking them the question. It's like me asking you, hey, Don, like, what do I do about my digestion? How the fuck do you know? You don't even know what I eat. But you're going to try and answer and you're going to try to help me out. You could say, well, if you're feeling this, then that, and you're going to try to diagnose me, and that's fine. But at the end of the day, I got to live with that. So I have to become one with the experience of that, not for any other sake, not to find peace, but just out of curiosity, because I need to understand. Because nobody else on this planet is going to be capable of doing that. I'm the only one. There's no one else, man. There's no Nisargadatta, there's no Robert, there's no Shiv, there's no Ramana. Everyone's just approximating, giving you broad generalizations.
And yet I want to scream, Shiv, help make it better.
Of course you do. I get it. It's always easier, right, to look on the outside because we feel helpless, man. Like there's times when, you just go like, fuck, I don't understand. What can I possibly do anymore?
But a great many people whom I know managed to get by, and they would not even they wouldn't imagine a discussion like this or a meeting like this. My wife is one of them. She gets up, she goes about her business, she seems fine. Why
smart.
can't I seem fine?
Because she's smart, Don. She selected the lie that she wanted to believe in, right? There's no judgment on her here. I'm not trying to cast any kind of, that there's something wrong. That is a strategy of life. It's a strategy of survival. Just like dogs have teeth and claws, right? Just like monkeys have tails. every animal, every organism has a survival strategy. Well, this is the human being's survival strategy. It's the ego. It's how do I survive in the social world? Because otherwise, Don, you'd be out in the woods fending off fucking bears, but you're not. You're lying on a comfortable couch with a beautiful orange and white pattern pillow behind your head. How do you think that happens, Don? How do you think that happens? How do you think you're not shitting in a hole in the woods? And you've got a toilet with plumbing that flushes every time you hit a little button there.
A
And how do
rash
you think
assumption
food?
on your part, but you're right. I
Yeah,
have all
so
those things.
so there's a world that is believing in a lie that allows that kind of thing to be produced around you. Okay. So be thankful there are those who believe in their lies because it props your own existence up in a way. Okay. So this is why we shouldn't, I don't like to be judgmental of the life choices people make or the things they believe in, religious or otherwise, because somehow all of that melds together to support my existence. I have to be honest about it. I'm not left out to fend off Arctic wolves here. I'm sitting at a dining table with this technology that allows me to communicate with you that I didn't build. I don't have the intelligence to build it. So all those morons out there believing their lies have facilitated this for me. So I must be thankful for it. I must be appreciative. I must have gratitude for that. For the
How about a
ability to facilitate.
summation? How about a summation? This is an integral, a stigma of the entire essence of what's going through my head. Many times, my wife has said the following quote, unquote, this is a direct quote. What the hell's wrong with you? Nothing's happening! Exclamation point, close quotes.
We're going to come back to that quote once we let it sink in. I want to move on to
I'm too fucking honest with you. You got me started now, but
let's park it for a second because I want to engage other viewers as well, and we're going to come back to that quote. What the fuck is wrong with you? There's nothing happening. I haven't forgotten it. All right, we're going to come back to it.
Great, thanks, Shiv. I can't wait to hear the other people.
Yeah, absolutely. And if anyone wants to chime in and give feedback to Don as well, but this is what this is about. This is not a monologue. I'm not here to sermonize here. Fuck that.
I know you're not. That's why I'm here with you.
The next person, and I'm going to butcher this name again. I'm sorry, it's not Desiree. It was.
Very good. It's not that. It's not that important. You will see that my English, and I apologize, and please ask if you don't understand something because I'm not a native English speaker, as you can probably hear. And sometimes I forget vocabulary. So maybe Jonathan, being a German and German being my mother language, can help out if I can't find a word. I should hopefully get through. Yes, I think the question was why I'm here. There's so many factors why anyone is anywhere at a given point in time that it's impossible to, there were so many factors that made me being here that I found it so funny because you started with that question, and it was actually the same question I had asked myself like half an hour before. And I think that's the answer to, I'm going to explain myself. When I popped, or when Facebook brought me your, what is it called, blog as a recommendation, I was at a point where I was absolutely fed up with, just to use the word, it's not what I understand for it, but with spiritual teachings, whatever. I had gone through what I believe to be pretty much all the available teachings ever. And I realized that it just was more escapism in my case, more addiction, more wanting to know, more ego needing to know, more knowledge. So I was very hesitant. And then you popped up. I thought, great. Just when I wanted to stop, you know, life brings you something that is supposedly irresistible. And what happened then, it was just, you know, call it projection, whatever, but it appeared that whatever I was gestating in a sense of contemplating in my life, when I happened to go on Facebook without any hope of, you came with the post, I just answered it. And with time, I realized that not only your posts answer it, but everything answers it, especially groups or people that kind of are closer with whatever their specific story is connected to what I'm contemplating at the moment. So this mirroring to me is very true, and not in a simplistic sense, but in a very this connection of all the stories and of everything that is going on, be it in the macro and in the micro, is something that just makes me feel a lot of joy. And that's why I actually came here. So I found you like to be, and it's not meant with arrogance, but it appeared like you were writing what I was thinking about. And it was just like, wow, what's going on? The same thing happened earlier. You said waiting 3 minutes, this pause thing. I first started with it because of Tara Brach. She's one of the very, very few other teachers that I stayed with, because I really like, she's in my perception very balanced between, you know, application of spirituality, you know, walking what we talk about, and not just theories and blah, but no real putting it into life, and how is it related to the crisis we're going through, how is it related to personal real issues. So, and she said the thing, she keeps repeating it with the pausing, with this stopping after whatever. And I mean, the way I talk is also the way I tend to go through life. Rather impulsive, and rather, you know, one thing follows the next, and of course quality, and also attention, but what is the word I was looking for? The mindfulness is lacking of whatever I'm doing, and it was for many years, and it's obviously still is, this chasing after, you know, the next thing is the thing that is going to be satisfying, like dawn, in a sense. Always in the future. The satisfaction was always in the future, until I realized this is a trap. So with this pausing, etc., kind of always trying to come back to what is happening now, and but trying to be very, I guess my ultimate challenge is just to be soft and kind, because everything I tried in my life was always with this strictness and this like being towards myself like a teacher, like a parent, you know, and being not reckless, what's the word? Very you know, like this. I just don't have the word right now. Strict, yes, just very strict and rigorous. And that's not, it's not working like that. It's not working like that. The same thing to, you know, to cutting my addiction to knowledge and stuff. I realized I went from everything to nothing, and that was just too much for my system to take. And it also wasn't life giving to just retire from a, yeah, I don't want to know anything anymore at all, no input. That's not, I guess, how you grow, even though, you know, I'm not a monk. Okay, I spoke enough. I'm here, like I said, because I feel that any person and animal and whatever I meet tells me something about what's going on in my life right now. And it's very inspiring, and it's what it nourishes me. It nourishes me.
Beautiful. So when I was talking earlier about becoming better at groping through the darkness, right? This is a big part of that, is recognizing the things you touch in the darkness. And that is the relationships, the animals you meet, or nature. Everything is communicating something back, right? This is how we're understanding the darkness, through the groping. We never can actually see what we're groping. We can only imagine what we're touching. You know, we think we're touching a hand, it might be a branch. We never know, but we'll never actually know for sure, for 100%. But that's where the story comes in. We feel that we are understanding in a certain way, right? And that gives some kind of a relevance to our life. Somebody might take a very sort of scientific approach where everything I touch is only material and it must make only material sense. It must be validated by everything that society teaches us through the sciences, through evidence and all of that. Somebody else might take a more mystical path and say, no, I reserve the right to give my subjectivity more credence, understanding that it is, after all, only subjectivity, and it might be, you know, some kind of myth making, but there's a power in myth making as well. And so I'm going to allow my imagination to also have a say in how I understand the world. But these are all options, right? There's no right or wrong way about this. We're all groping in the dark, like I said. So it's very interesting to me that this is, you interact with the world in a way that things are meaningfully communicating to you.
But Shiv, you know, you said to jump in, and this is really, really something that I found interesting. You said objectivity. There is no such thing. How is there such a thing? There is no such thing. Also, science is not objective. It's always a common acceptance of something. How is anything object, who is watching at it from a place to say it's objective, and for whom, you know, the subject that understands it is a subject and understands it subjectively, even if you take a general theory of whatever, 1 + 1 is 2. But the understanding is, for every person in this world, subjective. What is really, you know, I always find it funny when people speak about it. To me, it's not separate, science from spirit. It's everything. That's what I mean by this absolute inseparability. How is anything objective? Also, when it's talked about an objective and a subjective reality, you know, what, where, you know. And
I think it's more of a degrees of experience. There's no clear line, right, between what is, there's nothing that's purely objective, because you need a subjective observer to even observe the objectivity. That's what you're saying. What I was saying earlier, the word I used was subjective, not objective. I agree with you. There's no evidence to me of an objective reality without an observer involved in some fashion. Okay. But that's not to say there isn't. There just is not sufficient evidence for me. Now, when we create this difference between subjectivity and objectivity, it's more like, you know, you listen to a piece of music on a Chopin playing, and my child goes, "Oh, that's awful music." And I go, what are you talking about? It's beautiful. As opposed to, there's a table, and whether I measure it or my child measures it or somebody else measures it, the length is consistently the same. And I think that is the distinction. It's not so much what is measuring, but that there's a consistency in the material world in terms of how things can be measured, as opposed to in our purely subjective perception of things, which tend to be more emotional. 10 of us might listen to the same piece of music. We might say something slightly different about it, but 10 of us might measure the same table and we'll all come up with the exact same measurement. And that definition alone is the differentiation between what people call subjective and objective. But I agree with you that can something be purely objective or purely subjective in absolute terms? I have never had an experience like that. I don't, in order to create physics, you need physicists. In order to measure the material universe, you need conscious observers. And more, that is something that people are coming to accept. Even the scientific world, when they look at quantum theory, they understand that the observer has an effect. So that's kind of the thorn in everyone's backside, is classical physics collapses when you start looking at it from a quantum view of things. And so they've created this two model world in physics. There's the quantum world, which has a completely different reality at very, very small scales. And then there's at the macro level, the classical world, almost as if they're two different universes. And currently, the whole world is continuing to operate in this sort of double think, because they have no idea. And everyone will openly admit this. Even, your most materialistic physicists will openly admit they have no idea how to reconcile the two. They just are forced to accept that at very small lengths and very small sizes, the universe behaves in a very bizarre way in which suddenly we are required to participate for anything to make sense, even for things to be measured, even for things to behave like certain things, we must be present, right? So that is where we are at right now. So there's, I think, a final willingness to say that consciousness has some part to play. What that part is, we still don't know, because frankly, there's no interest. There's not sufficient momentum within the sciences to even go there, because it completely breaks down. How do you include subjective experience and conscious experience, which is very, very personal, into the way classical physics is done, which is in a very, sterile, controlled way where things are measured independent of who's observing it, right? The people observing it. But I want to move on right now to Susan, who's next, who's waited very patiently. And Susan, I want to put the same question to you.
Because I'm here because I'm curious, very curious what it would be like to be in the presence of people who are thinking about these sorts of topics. I'm also exhausted from bouncing to try to find some stability in, like, what do I believe? And I just am looking, I guess, for a way to live a life, to really interact with the world in a way that isn't filled with, I wonder what the substantiating evidence is for this. Or my background is, I'm trained as a behavior analyst, so very materialist background in education, and, stuck it out to get a PhD, hoping I'd have some sort of clarity after that. And, it was just more stuff, more ways of trying to box up the world and make it stable. And I still, so I guess, in my background in spirituality is sort of new. It's since I've finished my degree, and spirituality is a no-no in behavior analysis. You don't go there. It's too woo-woo, it's not measurable. And so that's why I'm here, to just kind of experience this. And maybe maybe the penny will drop and I will figure out how I can actually like take a drink of coffee and really like drink coffee. Just drink coffee. So that's why.
So, Susan, what is spirituality to you?
I guess it's a seeking for meaning. I guess that's a seeking for meaning. And I can see that seeking in everything that people seek for. So, I work, I'm employed, I'm self-employed, I'm a dog behaviorist. So I work with people and their dogs all the time. And I see people seeking that like in their dogs, like, and then putting all this burden on this poor creature that's just sort of just there. And, and there's a purity to just being with a dog and just having experience of being with a dog that doesn't require like all the stuff people are looking for. And that's just one example. It just happens to be in my world, it's a dog. And I've done it too. So I can really relate to that, to my clients. And it's just one more thing that I'm trying to, grasp and hold on to as solid and go, whew, finally, So I guess that's what I think spirituality is, seeking that
And
meaning.
let me ask you this, because I'm fascinated by dogs, because now I have one for the last 4 or 5 months, and I've had a cat all my life, and this wasn't the same experience with the cat, but the dog requires a lot more interaction and a real true relationship. And do you see seeking in dogs?
To a point, it's limited. Like a dog seeks until it gets, and then it stops seeking. It seems
Right.
like, right? It's very simple. Like,
But what if the dog didn't get? Because
then
my dog will keep following me until he gets what he wants. And I bet you he'd do it for 24, 48, 96 hours if he had to. He'd wipe himself out, wake up again, and start over. He
Yeah.
wouldn't stop.
right, right. But at some point, something would change. And then when it changes, then they would seek that thing. So maybe it would be rest, and then they would just rest. I don't know. I mean, that keeps me up at night. Like, how do they experience this world? That is another piece of it that's bizarre to me. And many times I wish I could just for 5 seconds get inside there and be, what is it like without language? I mean, I think language has a lot to do with it, and what we do with our words and how we, hang on to them to reach into the past and to the future. And without words, without that kind of language, what would it be like? So I guess that I think they seek until they don't need to seek, and then they seek something else, and then it's just the next thing and the next thing, and that's this life for a dog.
This kind of sounds like the life of a human too, doesn't it? So this is what I've got just through observing, not just human beings, but nature and dogs and cats and even plants and all of that, is that there's this constant energy and this movement towards something. We can call it seeking. And then there's a satiation that happens when whatever that thing is received, but it's always temporary.
Mhm.
It never satisfies for long. And then that seeking momentum starts again. Now, if you took a dog's brain and just implanted it with a human brain, and that added infinite layers more of complexity, and then the social complexity and the milieu of that, all that happens is that the seeking becomes more sophisticated. The same energy is now going into other things. And now, instead of the things like the food or the ball or the pat from the owner, now we're looking for validation or money or spiritual enlightenment, whatever it is, peace. We're seeking, and everything only satiates for a while. And the moment we clue on to that, we start a panic, because we're like, fuck, am I just going to keep doing this? Just rinse and repeat day in and day out. Seek, find something, satisfies me for a bit, seek something else. But wait a second. I've heard down the grapevine, that there's this one thing you can get that stops it forever.
Mhm.
Well, what if there isn't that one thing? Then
Hmm.
what? Then it's a dog's life.
Yeah.
Now, see, the dog is not disillusioned about any of this. He's not seeking the one thing, or he's not thinking very far to the future. That's kind of his benefit or her benefit. But they're just like, all right, once I get that next thing, my goal is the ball. I'm going to get the ball. Okay, I fetched it. Now what? Okay, he's thrown it again. Okay, the next goal is the ball. Let's go get the ball. The next goal is the ball again. It's the ball. For the next hour, the goal is the ball. The goal is the ball. The goal is the ball. We can't function that way because our brains project too far into the future and too far back into the past. My dog has a memory, maybe 5-10 seconds, and he's forgotten everything. Right? He didn't give a shit what happened early in the day. He could have gone for like the longest walk, and suddenly he pretends like he hasn't gone for a walk at all. It's like, come on, buddy. It just took you for an hour-long walk. I'm pooped. But it's that we leave these chemtrails in our minds of the past, and then we're trying to project where we're going in the future. And so nothing ever satiates because we're trying to solve the whole problem of life with the one golden nugget solution. And there isn't that. It doesn't exist at all. And for me, I realized that most human beings who struggle because they don't want to accept that that's all life can be. That's it. I'm just here to just live, wake up, eat, shit, work, watch some television, talk to some people, and go to sleep, and that's it. That's all this is it about. And that then precipitates a bigger, deeper question, but why? But what? What is the purpose? What is the purpose of my existence? What is the purpose of any of this? And that generates so much more angst because now all that seeking is never going to be satiated. Because now the little things are not good enough anymore. The meal's not good enough. The little, pat of validation on the head is not good enough. The little achievement at the end of the day is not good enough. We want the big kahuna now. We want it all to go away. We want to be satisfied. We want to be at peace and never be tormented another moment by that energy of wanting something else. Because we don't understand. Why? Why are we wanting things? What is this motivation pushing me and driving me often against my own will to just do random shit throughout my whole life? Let's go get a PhD. Let's become this and let's do that and let's buy this house. And why am I doing all this? Did I ever have any choice in this? Why did I show up here in the first place? All these kind of questions, like they start eating away at us. I want to move to who have I not talked to yet? Jonathan, we'll come back to you if you're still there. But he may not be because I'm looking at an empty car and a steering wheel. So we'll come back to him later when he can join us.
I wanted to say something later, Shiv, whenever
Absolutely.
there's
You can say it
space.
now. You can say it now.
Yes, two things to what you just said. It just words that rang. Isn't that funny that because we spoke of animals and nature, and so many times, they say, everything is about coming back to your true nature. And I just had a mini insight on that. I mean, that would be nature, to exactly be with that. I mean, the dog, when he eats, he eats. You don't need Lao Tse to tell you, it's the dog what he does. And he does it with his full mindfulness in that very now. It's all the stuff that is written in the books what we should do. And you mentioned the problem why we don't do it. It's just, I'm not sure it's the right word, but it's because of memory. We don't experience it as something new. That's also the point why how is this saying going? It says familiarity causes, when they speak about couples or resentment or
Familiarity
something.
breeds contempt.
breeds contempt. Exactly. Why are we the meanest to the people we know longest? Because you are habituate. It's habituation. So if we have no memory, every meal would be like, wow, and that's I think also the reason why there's so much focus on just being with what you do. So we're constantly scratching the surface of whatever we do, and next. Of course, it's never satisfied in itself. But it's just because we are not there. If we're never there, we are always in the future, which is not a life state. It's a virtual state. It is not an actual embodiment of material being here with whatever we are doing. Of course, it's unsatisfactory. So I think coming back to your true nature, apart from, which from what I understand, that this is really kind of, I guess, 80%, no, I don't know. It's also conceptual, but of course it's more and more detaching from this ego. I'd say not from the whole, but from the ego aspects that, are just negatively from conditioning. Don't call it ego, from the negative conditions. But I think it's this true nature is more to be found in the truly in a concentration and intensifying of wherever I am, of presence. I don't like these words because they seem so, I'm tired of these words because they don't say anything if one doesn't put any content to it. You can read them everywhere. I read them for years. I consumed them, but I didn't understand what they mean. And I think if we go back to nature, I really mean it, they teach us what they mean. It's about nutrition. It's really about nutrition. When I look at something, I can, TV, binge watch TV. But I can also, it doesn't even matter what I look at. I can look with attention and intensively at the creamy, whatever it is, and it will nourish me more. And I will also be more discerning in realizing, is this something that I really want to, consume or not? And no need to, train myself away from watching porn, etc. The moment I really am present and I really look at what I am looking at, I will notice if that is something that is doing me well or not. I will not need anyone to tell me, don't do it, or it's not spiritual or whatever. An animal, when he eats and there's something poisonous inside or something unhealthy, he will not continue eating because he's present with what he's doing.
So this question of true nature, it's an interesting one for me because I agree with a lot of what you're saying in that animals have a natural ability to be present with their natures. But that's almost because there's no choice to deviate. There's no mechanism within their brain that allows them to be anything other than themselves, right? Human beings do, and that's because we're self-aware. When I look at my dog, and Susan, I'm not trying to be a dog expert here. You are the dog expert, but this is my perception, is that my dog is hyper aware of his environment at all times. The people in it, the things, the opportunities, the potential threats, things of interest, curiosities. His nose is always sniffing. So his attention is purely outward. There appears to be very little awareness of himself as a dog participating in that environment. And so all his resources, his instinct, everything is kind of fine-tuned to optimize life the best way a dog can do it. Human beings, we have a double-edged sword because our attention can only go one way at any given time, out or in. And when it's in, the out fades to black. It's kind of this blur. And when it's out, the in. And when we're focused on the outside, the beautiful thing is all those internal conflicts and all kind of fade into the background. Yeah, they just sort of, okay, like, oh yeah, I was feeling that discomfort, suddenly forgot about it, because suddenly we're present. It's a beautiful thing to be present like a dog. However, there is something to be said about self-awareness, because there's this iterative evolution that happens in a person that doesn't happen in a dog. My dog, from the moment he's a pup to the day he dies, is pretty much his personality will evolve, but in a much smaller way than my human life. It seems richer in terms of its depth of experiences that are possible. And the way I would compare it is, you might have somebody who's born and brought up in a very little village, and they love the village and they know it feels like home. And they've never left this village. It's a small village of maybe 5,000 people, and they have beautiful relationships. They live and die in that village. And you have another person who leaves the village and they travel the world. They have all kinds of experiences. They experience different cultures, different conflicts, different ways of thinking, different religions, different philosophies, sciences, all of that. And then they eventually come back at the end of a lifetime and they settle back in the village and go, this village is my home. Now, both of those people arrived at the very same place, very different trajectories and very different depths of experience. So is it our true nature to be present and vitally interacting with the environment as if there's very little separation? I do agree that is our true nature. But is it also our true nature to have the freedom to deviate from that, to also be mindless, to also lose ourselves in the future, in the past? To me, if that wasn't also our true nature, how would that happen? How can anything that's untrue in nature happen? We are, after all, products of nature. We don't have some power to suddenly extract ourselves from nature. We're not creating our own universes here. We're still a part of this universe. We're functioning a lot of the time pretty absent-mindedly and blindly and unconsciously. And yet, this human culture has been produced, after all, by nature. It has come from the plains and the caves and from the nomadic cultures into this, talking over Zoom. It's all happened in a very short span of time. If you look at the whole history of evolution, I mean, it's nothing. Civilization is 5,000 years. It's like a blip. If you actually looked at the evolution of just time on Earth, it would be a blip that almost not noticeable, but it's happened. So nature has produced it in some way, shape, or form. So while mindfulness brings us into a depth of perception of an aspect of our true nature that is lost when we go into the mental realms of imagination. In that state of mindfulness, there's something else of our nature that is lost, I find. Because there's a absence of that leaving, that going away, that disappearing into the ethers, into other abstract universes. Like, I don't know for a fact that the abstract universes of my mind actually don't exist in parallel dimensions. I don't know. Maybe the mind just is a universe creating machine. And every time I go off somewhere, I'm living in an alternate reality. And then I come back to this one. I'm a time traveler or a dimension traveler. We don't know that. But my greater point here is, maybe it's all our true nature. Maybe being mindful and mindless and awakened and asleep and all of that, everything, the entire milieu of everything that happens to us is part of our nature. And the only reason we're trying to pick and choose is because we have a vested interest in how it turns out. We are not unbiased, impersonal observers. Because if we were, we'd be like, all right, well, okay, so this is what life is, I guess. Sometimes we're present, sometimes we're not. Sometimes we're mindful, sometimes we're mindless. And that is what it means to be human. But no, we want to go, but which is the truer experience? Is it to be mindful? Because there's a benefit, right? There is a benefit. If there wasn't a benefit, why would we truly be motivated? Like the dog, we want that satiation. So we want to know, well, which is the actual true nature, because the actual true nature will give me the better life. Otherwise, why would I pursue it? What is my motivation? I got to be honest with myself. Are you, and I don't mean you, but you as in the general you, are you willing? Let's say, I don't know, tomorrow, some great prophet descended from the heavens and said, hey, guys, this is the reality. There's nothing to do. You just got to live and you die. All of it is true. The lies are true. The truth is true. All of it. You mindful, mindless, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. It's true. No one's going to be satisfied. It's going to be the death sentence for all of us. Because what do you mean? What do you mean there's nothing to look forward to now? There's nothing I can do about anything? I just got to just be? That's unsatisfactory for me. I refuse to accept this. That is going to be the response of the vast majority of people who hear that kind of thing. Because there's nothing there to hold on to. And so there has to be a hook. There has to be a way. And that is what religion and spirituality and everything you've ever seen out there has always offered you, a way. Because the way of your life is not good enough. So they're giving you an alternative. But the alternative is always a lie. The truth is basically exactly what you've been experiencing. You don't have to like the truth. The truth doesn't give a shit if you like it or not. I don't like the truth most of the time. Sometimes I like it, most of the time I don't like it. It's inconvenient. The truth is highly inconvenient.
Generally sucks.
Yeah, it sucks, right? Now, what in the truth was ever not supposed to suck? Like, well, why do we have this assumption that the truth was designed to feel good? No. As complex beings, it makes sense that we must experience complex lives. Simple beings experience simple lives. So if you're a plant, the benefit is you get to experience a simple existence, but you don't get complex joys, complex relationships, complex everything that we humans get. So those are the trade-offs. As my dog, I see my dog, he gets simple forms of love. You know, he comes in the morning and he licks my toes and I fucking tuck them back under the covers because I hate that feeling. And then he comes, sniffs my face, and I go, okay, buddy. And I give him that pat and that rub, and he feels so happy. But he will never get the kind of love that my children get, because that love is infinitely deeper and complex in the forms of interactions we have. I'm not saying the love is more meaningful. I'm just saying it's infinitely deeper and more complex. The ways, the myriad ways in which we connect is more than a pat and a rub. And so because we get to extract that benefit of complexity, we also have to deal with the dark side of that complexity, which is the fucking confusion and the pain and the uncertainty and all of that also the dog doesn't have to deal with. That's a trade-off. There's always a trade-off.
But Shiv, I mean, isn't the question, it's very nice that you took the village point, right? You can take the dog and us, or the guy who lives all his life in the village, and the other one who is the wow nomad and this and that. Okay, who is happier? That's the question, right? Is the guy in the village who is there and has his little family and doing his field, etc., necessarily less happy? Or were we, before internet was here and we were so greedy and we were comparing us to the whole world and we were seeing influencers who were doing more than us and better, and YouTubers, etc.? Was our life so much worse? Or was it actually, was this limitation not giving more sense of safety and of, shelteredness, etc.? Yes, like you say, more complexity of experiences possible, etc. But I think that the trade-off is really to to understand what of all of that do you really need, you know? And I find very important point, greed and fastness. I've been really, and again, I come back, it's the same. It's how you do one thing is how you do everything. We have been trained to consume. Everything is laid out to make us consume and be addict, you know? So the trade-off is, do we really need all of that to be happy? I've traveled so many times. Do you think every extra thing gave me more happiness? No, you know, it gives you more balance up of dopamine and then the down, which is deeper down than before. So if you want to go for that, it's okay, you know. Like you say, life doesn't care about it. But the question to me is really, am I that much happier with all of this than people that I meet here now that I went to the south of Spain to live and see how, you know, this small village people are much happier, some of them, and also, you know, in a sense, much more spiritual and mindful than many people, you know, that have all these non-dual you know.
Yeah, I think, you know, for me, there are two different motivations here. There's truth, and then there's happiness. Happiness, there are many ways and strategies to get to happiness. Now, you'll see in these smaller villages, communities, because I live in one, okay? There has to be, especially for human beings, community, relationship, a sense of safety and security in numbers. That is a big contributor to human happiness. And what brings that cohesion together is typically some shared belief. It doesn't have to be a religious belief. It can be some kind of political or social belief or something, right? I saw this in Japan a lot when I lived there as well. This beautiful small community, Okinawa, and some people are just so happy. These old ladies, 100-year-old, missing their teeth and just laughing all the time. And you go, wow, man, you just look so freaking happy all the time. And they just are pleased with life. But there's always something supporting that. Understand, under that, you're being bolstered, okay? My dog is a happy dog because he's not out there fending. He's a rescue. He was rescued at the age of 2 months from a litter of 8 other siblings, one of which died because his mother, who was also an 11-month-old pup, I don't know, she was probably gang raped by a bunch of dogs, and she was half dead with her litter, and they were rescued by society, and I adopted him. And so he's a happy dog because unbeknownst to him, there's an entire substructure supporting his life, giving him dog food, taking him to the park, chucking a ball, all of which cost money, and I don't have a job. And so there are so many struggles in the background that he will never understand that are supporting his existence and allowing him to be a happy dog. When you meet happy people, a lot of them don't fully grasp the complexity of what it is that is supporting their happy existence. A lot of times there's a cultural underbelly there that's supporting, that's bolstering, that allowing that to manifest and unfurl. But when we are talking about truth, you see, we're talking about those people who unfortunately stumbled upon this little rabbit hole of wanting to now question all of it, like us. And so when we started going into the substructure, we're like, wait a second, the substructure doesn't make sense. There's no reality to this. It's all made up. Those happy people out there, they're not asking those questions. They take certain basic assumptions of life as unquestionable truths. That gives them the benefit of then manifesting happiness. But the ones who don't, the fools like us, we go down into the substructure and we go, wait a second. No, this is not real. This is not true. And then if that's not true, then that means my happiness is not true. And now I'm going to question the very basis of my own happiness. That is the journey that every human being eventually goes on in some way, shape, or form, because we all start blissfully happy and ignorant. I have children. I've seen them be happy and ignorant for most of their lives. And now, finally, as they grow older and they start questioning things, I can see that happiness slowly starting to dissipate, and the questions and the anxieties and all start coming in because they're starting to question the basic assumptions of their own realities. And they understand that, hey, it's not as clear and simple as I thought it was. There's a reality of mom and dad keeping our lives going. And we didn't know that that was what was behind the veil. And so each time we look behind the veil, it robs us of our happiness. Of course it does. Because who wants to look and see the apparatus behind that and where that apparatus has come from? It's always from a dark place. All of society is built on the bloodshed of history. But most of us don't want to go there, right? And so those two things to me are incompatible. Truth will always undercut happiness, because happiness wants to create a certain kind of status quo and then live it out. And there's nothing wrong with that, okay? There's nothing wrong with that. But truth wants to constantly peel something back, peel something back. And each time you peel something back, you're going to be confronted with something uncomfortable, not comfortable, because it's unfamiliar, not familiar. You're going to peel back something and you're going to see something that was previously unknown, not known. And human nature by design detests the unknown, the uncomfortable, the unfamiliar. So just think about what it is that the spiritual quest is about. It's not about going out and seeking the comforts of life, clearly. It's about bushwhacking through the wilderness. And anybody who's ever been an explorer of any kind, whether they went to the South Pole or into the Amazon, knows they did not pick the easy path. They picked the path of parasites and certain death and breaking their bones and getting killed by hostile tribes. This is what they picked. They didn't do it because they wanted to be happy, right? But there's something else in them that motivated them. Now, we come back to happiness, and I'm going to speak about myself here. We come back to, I keep coming back to happiness because sometimes it gets exhausting, because I've come to realize there's no end to this. And so that means that I kind of sentenced to a life of not truly being happy, even though I don't know what that word means. But every once in a while, you want to break. You want to say, okay, I need to rest for a while. And when I rest for a while, I allow the blinkers to come on for just a little bit. I'll allow myself to believe certain things. I'll allow myself to feel like I've gained some level of knowledge, and that's going to bolster me. That's going to be my new platform upon which I build some illusion of happiness for a while until I'm ready to shatter that again. And then I go, fuck. All right, let's go back into this again. That substructure is gone. And it happens over and over and over and over again. But the beautiful thing is we can pace ourselves. You know, there's no finish line to it, and there's no award for doing it faster or slower. You don't even need to do it at all. Most people don't. Most people just start their life off. They say, okay, well, here's my fundamental belief system. Pop it in at the bottom there. And now let's start to build a life, build all of it, build the illusion and enjoy it. Be happy. Illusions are very satisfying if we build them correctly. You know, they can be horrifying, but they can be very satisfying. I know so many happy people who are very blissfully ignorant about a lot of things, but they're way happier than I am. Don, I want to come back to what your wife said to you.
Yes.
I'm just reading
Yeah, read
Israel's
too.
comment here. It just popped up and then disappeared. So let's bring up my chat. Nature is the unknown, the uncarved block. I feel what it is that detests the unknown is our conditioning. The more we can open our seeing, the less anything will feel unknown to us. It's possible. But at the same time, I don't feel like the unknown is finite, right? So, but I'm willing to admit I could be entirely wrong as well. I don't claim to know. This is just, this is what my perception says to me right now is this unending, infinite. Everything is an infinite process.
Why do you where do you take it from that I'm saying that it's finite? Just to understand what I wrote, because I don't see it implicit.
I'm not suggesting that it was implicit in what you said. That's the way I think about the unknown, is an infinite process, right? An infinite, let's call it a existence or an entity, whatever. And yes, the more we open our eyes, the less anything will feel unknown to us. But if it's infinite, there's infinite unknown still ahead. So I can know 5 things, I can know 10 things, I can know 100 things, I can know 1,000 things, and yet I'm staring at an infinite unknown. So I don't see it as a progression happening. I don't see it as, okay, I'm exploring this infinite ocean, and if I've dived 100 feet deep, now I'm going to be happier than I was when I was at 10 feet, or 1,000 feet deep, I'll be happier than I was at 100 feet, because below me is an unknown regardless. It never ends. It's only if it was finite that I could say there's a progression, because you're progressing towards some end. But because it's infinite, there is no progression. No matter how far you move, you're still in the same place. That's my experience of it.
Please, Shiv, what the hell's wrong with me? Nothing's happening.
What the hell is wrong with you? Nothing is happening. That's what your wife said.
Yeah.
But that's kind of sounds like what I just said, right? About we're not moving. Nothing is happening. Nothing is actually happening here. It's the same. It's just a different manifestation every day, but there's no purposefulness to it.
Why
no
is she okay?
progression.
Why is she okay with that? And I'm anything but.
Because she picked something. What does your wife believe in, Don?
What does she
Believe in? She's got to believe in something. Does she believe in the government, or does she believe in a certain political party or ideology? Does she believe in a
Well, she
certain
has
religion?
political views. She's a family-oriented person. She's a kind person. But there is not this gratuitous suffering based on something which to her is invisible. I mean, she looks at what I have and she looks at my life and our relationship. What's wrong? Maybe it's a clinical thing. Maybe it's a medical thing. I don't know.
Clinical or medical are lenses through which you can look at it, but nothing is fundamentally a clinical thing or a medical thing. There's the clinical perspective on the thing and the medical
Right.
perspective
Fair
on the
enough.
thing. So
Okay.
what is the thing? Though that's what you want to get at. Right?
Yeah.
The thing simply is the complexity. You are complex in a way that your wife is not. She's complex in a different way that doesn't cause her to suffer. So there are complexities you're seeking in life that she is not seeking. You haven't chosen them. She is more able to accept the circumstances of life within whatever paradigm or lens she's chosen, supported by certain beliefs. And
Oh,
that allows her to function.
that is a super accurate assessment of
But
her attitude.
tomorrow, there could be an event that suddenly shattered that illusion, that support structure. And when that happens, she may understand, well, okay, so this is what Don meant. That may never happen. Let's hope it never happens to her. so that
Mhm.
she's able to live her life in the sort of paradigm she set up, because it allows her to be happy to a certain extent, not be
Mhm.
absolutely miserable. But that's not a benefit you have at the moment, right?
So
Now
what do
you
I
have
do?
so you have to pick for yourself, right? There's two options. There is, I can see the bullshit, I continue to question the bullshit. Or, you know what? I'm just going to pick something to believe in, and I'm just going to fashion my life on that system. There are people who have done that. I know people who have gone back to Christianity after years of questioning everything. They've seen through the whole thing, and they've gone back to the church because they go, yeah, I see through the bullshit of the church, but there's so many benefits here. And
Yeah,
I'm
but a
tired.
person,
I want
you
those
know, the
benefits.
expression, a person convinced against their will remains unconvinced. That's the kind of person you're describing. They're going back to Christianity, knowing full well that the
No, it's
basis.
a nuance, Don. It's a nuance. It's understanding that in addition to the truth, as human beings, we need something more. We need love. We need, as Desiree said, happiness. Like, truth is not going to cut it. Truth is a harsh way to live. And we want to be kind to ourselves and other people too. We don't want to inflict truth upon ourselves and other people all the time. It's painful. So we want to balance our quest for truth with other things, such as, all right, I need to create some semblance of a functional life. I want to feel some semblance of happiness and connection to others. And in order to do that, I need to create some white lies in my life. I understand it's bullshit, but sometimes I understand it's fake, but sometimes the fake also serves a purpose.
Mhm.
Right? It's no different than watching a movie. You know, the movie is fake, but it does something for you, right? It makes you feel good, or it entertains you, or it horrifies you, or something. It creates some kind of a real reaction in you, right, Don? That's why you watch it. You don't just go, wait a second, that film is bullshit. I know it's fictional. Why should I ever watch it? I refuse to watch a film ever again. No, you're cool with watching a film. I am, because I know it's bullshit. I know it's fictional, but it does something for me. I have a vested interest, and I don't want to deny the vested interest either. And so I watch the film. Similarly, we get to a certain point where we go, look, if there's no reward for the truth, is the truth worth the amount of suffering it's causing here? Maybe there's a way which I can't turn off my perception, but I can also make the choice to choose certain white lies in my life.
Maybe I just suffer clinical depression.
Again, clinical depression is a perspective that is, 100, 150 years old at most. Now, again, that's another choice you can make, right? You can say, okay, I'm going to look at this through a lens of psychiatry and say, okay, I'm clinically depressed. I'm going to allow myself that white lie in a way.
Well, I'm a scientist, that's how it seems to me.
Okay, so if you're clinically depressed, there are many things you can do about it, right? You can see a psychiatrist, you can medicate yourself, you can do several things about it. But again, I
Doesn't
feel like
work. None of those paths work,
right.
or haven't worked for me.
So what is the motivation for you here? What do you want?
Peace.
Okay. Now, if that peace came at the cost of seeing through the bullshit, is it a price you're willing to pay?
But I do see through the bullshit. I can't unsee it.
Okay. But your, what's the word I'm looking for? Your aberrance, your hatred for the bullshit. Okay. Are you willing to trade that in? I'm not saying you're not going to be able to see the bullshit, but are you willing to participate in the bullshit?
That's a very good question. Really, I'm on the fence,
Right. So that's where that
and the
choice.
fence has spikes on it.
Okay. So get off the fence and make the commitment, because you got to pay for it. Peace doesn't come for free. There's a trade-off.
How can I make a commitment? I mean, in terms of authenticity, how can I make a commitment to something that I believe is nonsensical?
Well, you got to make the deal with the devil, right? You got to make the deal with the devil. The devil pulls the veil over your eyes, Don. Even temporarily. You have to. That every one of us is constantly in that negotiation. And I'm talking about the devil metaphorically, so don't get hung up on that term. Every one of us is constantly in that state of negotiation, because we fundamentally deep down inside know that truth is not survival orientated. Okay. We are, as organisms, as human beings, as animals, designed to want to survive in this world. And in order to survive in this world, seeing all the information is not beneficial. We need to have tunnel vision, and we need to focus on relevant variables in the environment. When a lioness goes on a hunt, the only thing she sees is that deer. She's not gazing up at the clouds and thinking of the grand totality. Because if she did, she'd miss that deer every single time she'd go hungry. She'd die.
Mm-hmm.
She is designed by evolution to only see nothing but the deer. And the deer is all of reality. And so that kind of narrowing of our vision is the antithesis of truth, because truth is a broadening, it's opening up, it's an expansion. And when you see all of it, it actually doesn't motivate you to go out there and sell magazines or do whatever the heck people do to make money. It doesn't motivate you to do the things society needs us to do to survive. The power relationships, the politics, the this, the that. That's what survival in the human world looks like. And the people who survive best, the real survivors, are the ones who have absolute tunnel vision. They're able to
Oh yes, no question.
focus. They filter out. They don't allow in. They filter out until they focus on exactly what it is they want. And they go after it unscrupulously if they have to. And that makes them successful from a survival standpoint.
In my opinion, at this point, I think genetics plays a huge role in that. Temperament, call
Quite
it what
possibly.
you will.
Quite possibly, quite possibly. I don't believe we really choose our propensities at all, right? But my broader point here is that truth and survival, if you truly went to the deep impersonal space of just being and just witnessing, you would soon come to that place where you realize, well, there's no real point to living. And it's not nihilistic. It's not like, oh, my life is shit, I'm going to die. But it's just, well, what is the purpose of living anyways? Oh, I'm good to go at any time. Now, that's not compatible with our DNA. That's not compatible with what has helped our species dominate and survive and evolve. Not that kind of mentality. It's go out there, live at all costs, survive, build, hack forest, and that's what it is. So survival is a deeply personal thing, right? I must survive. The I must survive, not the universal I. The personal I must survive. That's what survival is. So how is truth compatible with that? It's not. And this is the huge absurdity of human existence, is that we're human beings. We're human and we're being. And so we're aware of both dimensions. And there's this huge conflict generated between the two, because the dimension of truth doesn't care if you survive, and the personal dimension only cares about you surviving. And happiness, by the way, is a survival instinct. Because when you're happy, what's being communicated by your brain back to you is, I'm doing a good job of surviving.
Yeah.
And when I'm unhappy, your brain is communicating back to you, buddy, your strategies are failing. I'm feeling unhappy because I don't think you're doing a very good job of surviving. Do a
Yeah.
better job of surviving. Figure something else out. Whatever that is. Could be a spiritual strategy, could be being more mindful. It doesn't matter. How you game your brain is up to you. But understand that happiness has nothing to do with truth. Truth doesn't care if you survive or happy or unhappy or whatever. Truth is simply interested in one thing and one thing alone. What is? Even if what is fucking war and famine, it doesn't matter. It's just interested in what is, impersonally. It's like a wildlife photographer watching the zebra and her baby being hunted by a pack of lions and going, how beautiful is life as they watch this carcass being torn apart and this baby being torn away from its mother. It's not interested in the survival of that zebra. It is purely dispassionately observing the greater unfolding of it. But you as a human being are not just that impassionate observer. You have a vested interest in your own survival. And you must honor that too. You cannot just sabotage that, because that is madness. Unless, you become a spiritual guru and you got a lot of followers feeding you and cleaning you up after you, then you're good,
Yeah.
right? You could just lay on that couch and get bedpans brought to you and you're good to go. And there have been gurus who've lived that way, who've literally just shit themselves and people have cleaned them up.
Well, I awaken every morning with a profound sense of what's the point? That's A. And B is, look how well everyone else is doing.
Oh, there's
And
2
I'm
points.
well-
There's 2 points.
Yeah.
And they come from 2 completely opposite views. One is there's an impersonal you. Call it the self, call it being, whatever it is. And for that deeper sense of self, the only point to life is living. That's it. And it's not living as in surviving, it's experiencing until there's no more experiencing to be done. And whenever that is, there's no vested interest. There's no requirement. I must live for 2 years or 10 years or whatever it is. It's simply to be. The only purpose of being is to be. That's it. And then there's the other side of you, which is your identity, your ego, and all of that. And I'm not talking about the human construct of your ego. Even animals have this. My dog wants to survive. If you threaten my dog's survival, he will fight tooth and nail to live. There's a sense of being his own individual self at a very rudimentary level that exists. Even plants fight for survival. So that is deeply ingrained within your DNA. And that part doesn't want to just be, it wants to keep persisting. Okay.
So whither I goest.
Whither you go is nowhere, right? There's those 2 impulses. And whenever you're not honoring one or the other, the overall general feeling becomes one of there's a deterioration that begins to happen.
Yeah.
So if you are ignoring the being aspect of yourself, then eventually, over time, all the things you've built in your life to support your survival begin to seem very, very hollow. Okay, everything in my environment is validating back to me that you're doing an amazing job of survival. You got money, you got a beautiful family, you got a nice sports car, you got whatever, everything that traditionally people want. And yet I'm feeling hollow and empty inside, right? That's a very common experience. But on the flip side, then you've got the experience with being aspect is very strong and it's fundamental, it's core, and there's that experience of presence. But if there's a total neglect, which tends to happen in spirituality a lot, especially in non-duality, all of that, because which becomes so hyper-focused on the impersonal me and the impersonal self that it completely denies that there is another personalized self structure that exists that must be honored and must be satisfied. Look, that's my cat meowing. And she's like, where's my fucking food? I need to survive too. If you neglect that, then you end up feeling the way you are right now, Don. Because that part has been left. And it says, okay, well, now I'm a loser. I feel unhappy. I'm pissed. Everybody else has gotten ahead of me. I had a 158 IQ, and those dumb motherfuckers everywhere around me, they're doing so well. And here I am feeling shit. And I'm just cynical and I'm angry and I'm upset, and as you deserve to be.
right on the fucking money.
Because it was neglected, because you listened to those assholes who told you it's not real and it's an illusion and it's bullshit and the ego must be destroyed or ignored or whatever the fuck you need to do to it. And because of those assholes, I'm not blaming, other people. It's a lot of that has to do with you buying into it. That aspect of your life has been neglected. Your survival as an personalized self, as an ego identity, as a social, character, has been left to just languish. And nothing has been done about it. And of course, you don't have that. Why wouldn't you?
You've been there, haven't you?
But you know what, Shiv? I really have to say something here, because with my strong non-dual time I had and the misery it caused in my life, like completely being like on a pure trip for years. I'm speaking years, and clinical depression is not even the beginning of it. I mean, I spent half of my life in psychiatry, not at home in psychiatry, with all kind of interventions. But what I believe in most cases, what happens is not true non-dualism, not even with the teachers. What happens is, and this is something I'm just recently finding out, because there is definitely something about non-dualism, but misunderstood one doesn't work. What happens is the conditioned, survival-based ego part, the one that thinks it understands, dissociates from itself and creates this self without ego thing. And that is then, guiding the show and trying to be spiritual and dissociating from the body, from his life, isolating, not meeting other people, believing itself to be something else, etc. It's not pure selflessness in the sense of really dropping the whole thing. Because
I agree with you 100% there.
I don't even think it is a dropping, honestly. It's what I tried to write in the last sentence. I think it's a complete loss of conditioning and of especially judging. Because, the baby zebra and the killed babies and all this kind of stuff, I mean, that's absolutely for our embodied suffering body, mind, being, impossible to cognitively believe. It's possible to not, to be something that I couldn't judge or couldn't feel. But what we really feel is not even for that thing. We feel ourselves, our own suffering. That's what makes us suffer in that case. So it's really actually egoistic. I always think, when people die, are we really truthful in saying that we are actually suffering the other person's death? Impossible. We are suffering our not having the other person anymore. That's the suffering I can experience. Any other suffering is, of course, it's in my mind, but how would I suffer the other person's death?
Well, I had this very,
you understand?
very similar
he is
conversation.
okay with his death, right? So
I had this
it's
conversation
much
with
more
somebody.
implication. I don't want to make it an all or nothing thing,
Mm.
right? It's just, I'm just putting this stuff out there. It's not like strict how I say it. I don't want to come over too hardcore. On the contrary.
We're all exploring. We're all exploring here, right? Like, I don't think any of us claim to have landed on, okay, this is finally the truth.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say.
Right. And we're all exploring. Like, you've had a process of coming to the understanding you're expressing today. I've had a process coming to the understanding I'm expressing today. A year from now, you and I might be expressing completely different understanding, right? And we have to allow
tomorrow.
And this is why this is a discourse. It's a discussion. It's not a debate, or nobody's expressing anything that they know with any finality. And the beautiful thing, and this is the Socratic method of discourse, is when you have an argument and its opposite, it has the opportunity to create a synthesis of a new idea that neither people had considered before, and that comes out of the ethers. Now, what I wanted to comment on your thing about the loss of life when people pass away. And I was talking to somebody just yesterday about this. And I said, it's so interesting. I've lost people I loved very deeply, whose loss affected me less than people that I loved much less, whose loss affected me more, because they were a more active presence in my daily routine. Okay. So I've lost, for example, family members who I hadn't seen in 2 or 3 years. And when they passed, I was deeply affected by their loss, of course. But somehow that grief didn't last as long. But then I've lost friends or acquaintances who I saw on an almost everyday basis. And when I lost them, I grieved more because I didn't know how to cope with the void they left in my life, because that void was a palpable daily void. Now, well, how do I fill up the time this person occupied in my life? And so it is 100% agree with you, very much about ourselves. And it always comes back to whether it's a relationship falling apart, or somebody dying, or some interest has been lost, or some political ideology that we once championed is no longer relevant to us, or some spiritual path, whatever it is. When that ends and we're left with grieving in that void, we hate it. We hate that void. And yet that void is the thing that we are. That is being. That is the crucible. So everything we're doing is to get around it. Just walking in circles around the center at all times, right? At all times. And so there's this balance that needs to be struck, because you can't just sit in the crucible, because the human body needs action, and it needs motivation, and it needs social connection, and it needs all of that. So somehow we need to keep departing from the crucible. And yet, once we're out there, coming back into the void feels too uncomfortable, because out there we are something. We are somebody.
Yeah.
And to your point, what you had said earlier about non-dualism and the way it's the very ism of non-duality is the bullshit part of it, right? It's faux non-duality, because true non-duality isn't even a philosophy. It's a very deeply felt experience. But the way it's approached, all it is just another survival strategy. It's just, okay, well, you see, seeking all those little things in your life didn't give you happiness. Seek this instead. That's all it is. It's just another carrot on a stick. And it's very unsophisticated in the way it's even communicated. True non-duality is not a thing at all. It is the experience of simply being here, and that's it. Now, I want to thank you all for joining, because I've really enjoyed this discussion. And I think I've learned so much from the places that all of you are communicating from. And this is what I always say, you know, as a writer, it's a very lonely experience, right? Because you're writing, especially online, you're writing and you're just sending it out into the void. And the void happens to be you people. Like you're on the other side of the void, but I can't see you. Like it's just this black hole. And on the other side of black hole are sitting Susan and Carl and Desiree and Dawn and Mac and hundreds and hundreds of other people. At least I've seen your faces. Most of them I haven't even seen. And so in that space, when I send it out into the unknown, things are happening that I have no control over, and I don't even understand the purpose of. And so when it comes back in this direction, for me, this becomes a kind of validation as well. Okay, this is something happening here. It's something real in a way. So I thank you all for joining.
Thank you.
And being okay with us recording, because I think, you know, if we share this with the wider readership, then we may get more people joining and more engagement and more points of view. I'm always fascinated to hear and truly in admiration of each and every one of you and people who go down this road, because there's so much suffering that accompanies with it, right? And there's just all our resolutions we find they're short-term resolutions. And we land at places that make us feel good for a while, but then we're off again. So in that, stand in solidarity with all of you. And thank you so much for joining.
Thank
And
you.
we'll do another one of these in a few months from now.
Take
Thanks,
care.
everyone. Take care.
Thank you. Bye, guys. Thanks a lot.
Bye.